What's up YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. This is Chu here from Choose to Explore, where I teach you to see the world and save a dollar. Now, I personally am a seasoned budget traveler who's been to over 30 countries, doing so on a budget while working a full-time job through graduate school and as a full-time college athlete. So what I'll be doing today is give you guys my top 5 budget travel destinations around the world. So stay tuned, you don't want to miss this one, guys. So these 5 are in no particular order. However, majority of these I've traveled through extensively and have been able to do so much affordably. The first country that I'm going to talk about is somewhere that I recommend almost anybody from North America to travel to. This was really the first place that I went that I realized that, wow, this is so inexpensive. I traveled here for 12 days, and outside of my flight, I only brought $300 for accommodation, food, activities, etc., and went home with some money. And this country is Colombia. I highly recommend going to Colombia, as I've been there 2 times and it's not my last either. I've been to 3 of their major cities, which include Bogota, Medellin, and Cartagena. So in Colombia, they use the Colombian peso, and your money goes so far here. I flew in between cities, so from Bogota to Medellin and Medellin to Cartagena, and each one of my flights were under $30 each, including taxes and fees. And I'm just going to talk about the top 5 things that I did when I was in Colombia. So number 1, the Pink Salt Lake that is about an hour away from Cartagena. This is actually a crazy experience where the water from the lake is actually pink. And this is due to the salt deposits and the bacteria that grows here. It was crazy to see how close it was to the ocean and to other blue waters, and why this one in particular was just pink. The second thing I'll talk about is a mud volcano right outside of Cartagena. This mud volcano is called El Tutumo. It was really cool just to feel weightless and just to float in the volcano. At the end, you wash off the sulfur and your skin feels like a baby. Next place I'll talk about is Guatemala, which is actually a city about an hour and a half from Medellin. Now this is a humongous rock that has stairs, I believe over 500 steps to get to the top. But when you get to the top, these views are spectacular. You see all these different lakes and just spectacular views overlooking different cities. In Medellin, there's a region called Comunidad 13, which used to be one of the murder capitals of the world. But it was amazing to see how they transformed this once destructive city into one of the most beautiful progressive cities in the world. Here they show you about the different artists and dancers in the region. And the 5th one I'll talk about is Monserrate in Bogota. Bogota is actually the capital city, and you have to take a trolley to get all the way to the top. And Monserrate overlooks the whole city. It is spectacular to see it as the sun sets, and even at night to see the whole city lit up. The next thing I'm going to talk about is food. And Colombia has great affordable cuisine. Some of my personal favorites are arepas, the fresh fruit, mondongo, which is soup, sancocho, which is another soup, buñuelos. You have to get some of this fried fish with the coconut rice. Next thing I'll talk about is accommodations. And it is an amazing city where you can typically find accommodations for under $40 a day. Now, I personally stayed in hostels and I was able to get accommodations for under $10 a day. But the second time I went, I stayed in Airbnbs with some of my guys' friends. The one thing that I love about Colombia are all of their cities are very walkable, and their public transportation, especially in Medellin, is top-notch. I've never been somewhere where it has been so clean. And a lot of the public transportation, especially in Medellin and some in Bogota, are gondola style. So they overlook and have some of the best views of the city. Overall, as I said, your money goes really far here. From food to drinks to transportation, everything here is top notch. You can have a luxurious stay or backpack through and save so much money comparative to other nations. This is a Spanish-speaking country, but a lot of the economy is based on tourism. So you can get around with some English, but just some Spanish phrases would greatly benefit you as well. Now, the second country that I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite places I've been to and in the motherland of Africa, and it is none other than Egypt. Egypt is one of the first places that I went to that got me out of my comfort zone and really helped me grow as a person and as a traveler. I went here for 12 days for my birthday in 2019. And I also traveled to 3 different cities. I was in Cairo, I went to Aswan, I also went to Luxor. Now, being in Egypt as a black man is an experience like no other. There are so many things to do, and I was so surprised that it was so affordable. Even when they charge you tourist prices, it still is significantly cheaper than what it is back home. But I still recommend negotiating everything. I've never been somewhere that they were so persistent about getting you to go on a tour or trying to sell you something. Simple phrases like la shukran, which means no thank you, go a far, far away. And be prepared to tip everybody. First thing I'll talk about are things to do. Number one is going to be the Great Pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx. What I didn't realize is this is all in the same complex. Like literally, the Sphinx is here and right behind it is the Pyramids of Giza. Also in Luxor, the Great Temple of Karnak was probably my favorite experience in all of Egypt, which I highly, highly recommend.
There's certain things that you just gotta see for yourself and can't read out of a textbook. Karnak is definitely that.
Also, in the southern region close to the Sudan border is Abu Simbel.
Driver got us late here, Abu Simbel. Lake Nasir right behind us. Mad nice.
Which is an amazing structure which is carved right into the mountains. Something that I also recommend is doing a Felucca tour on the Nile River. Now, Feluccas are traditional Egyptian boats that they use, and it takes you up and down the Nile River, and it is an amazing experience, especially during sunset. And the last thing that I'll talk about is the Valley of the Kings.
100 tombs here. Valley of the Kings, 100 king tombs here.
Now, this was an amazing experience where you got to actually go inside of the tombs of the different kings and pharaohs of Egypt. While I was in the Valley of the Kings, I actually went into King Tut's tomb and saw King Tut. I went to Egypt solo and I mostly stayed in hostels. In Egypt, the hostels were really like private rooms with their own bathrooms, and I stayed in rooms as cheap as $3 a day.
This is where I'm staying at in Aswan. This was a grand total of $3. Sounds good to me.
You can even get 5-star accommodations with great views of all of Egypt for under $100. Personally, that's not my taste, but it is super affordable here, especially if you want to do luxury on a budget. One thing that really benefited me when I was in Egypt is I had a friend who is Egyptian who I FaceTimed, and he would help me pick out food. Now, pardon me if I butcher any of these names, but I'm just going to read them. Great things that I had was Ful Medames, which is the most popular street food snack in Egypt. Next one is kosheri, which is a mix of rice, brown lentils, and macaroni, topped with fried onions and a spicy tomato sauce. In Egypt, they also eat falafel, which they call tamia, and you can find this anywhere on any street corner. One of my favorite items that I ate in Egypt was the shawarma, which is a large cone of pressed lamb or chicken, and you'll see these on the street corner. They rotate it around on a flame grill, and then they shave the edges. And also kofta, which are chunks of lamb and sliced meat grilled onto a skewer. So the next thing that I'll talk about is transportation. So I know many people do fly between different cities in Egypt, but I personally just took the sleeper trains, which were fantastic for me.
Time in Egypt, on this train heading down the Nile River to southern part of Egypt called Aswan. 14 hours on this. Wish me luck on a sleeper.
And there are different classes between first class, second class, and third class, but you literally just sleep on them and you wake up in your next destination overnight. Overall, Egypt is an amazing destination that I highly, highly recommend for travelers, especially people who want to save on a budget. Your biggest expense will come from the flight if you're coming from the United States and North America, but everything else is super affordable. So I highly recommend you checking it out. Now, the next place that I'll talk about is somewhere else in Latin America where I've been 2 times. The first time I went with my fiance, and the next time I went with some of my guy friends. You can actually see the video linked right above or linked in the description. Guatemala is someplace that I find near and dear to my heart because of the authenticity of the country. What I mean by authenticity are a lot of the people that live there are native to the land. So no matter where in Guatemala you go, you will get a local feel. And I went all over Guatemala. I was in Guatemala City, Antigua, Lake Atitlan, Pétain, Tikal, Coban, Semouk, Champay, and there still is so much more that I want to see. So first thing that I'm going to talk about are things to do. So in the northern region of Guatemala, there is Tikal, which is this amazing and massive Mayan structure. Actually, one of the sets of Star Wars was filmed here. But what I will say about Tikal is it is hot, so bring some water. The second thing that I'll talk about is Semouk Champay, which was a beautiful natural cascading river in the middle of two mountains. It was definitely a hike to get here, but the views are second to none. Next thing that is amazing is Lake Atitlan. Lago Atitlan is the deepest lake in all of Central America. And to get to a different region, you have to take a speedboat across. It was so fun just hopping around and seeing things to do. And one of the best things to do in Lake Atitlan is to do the Indian Nose hike. You have to wake up super early in the morning, but it's a spectacular view here where you can actually see volcanoes erupt.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, that hike up here was beast. It wasn't long, but the elevation was brutal. You're going straight uphill steps, but we made it. Me and the bros had to. And at the end, let me show you the view you're rewarded with.
Speaking of volcanoes, one of the best things to do near Antigua is to climb one of the volcanoes. Now, I actually climbed two of them. The first one was Volcán de Fuego, which was like the hardest hike I've ever done in my life, but so rewarding to see a volcano erupt right before my eyes. And I actually slept on a volcano.
So now we're at the top. Finally. And where's the fire? Fire!
But if you're not up to that, one thing that I also did with some of my guy friends is we hiked Volcán de Pacaya.
Check out that volcano right there, yo. That thing last erupted about 3 months ago, and we used to be able to go up there, but the path is covered in lava, so this is the end of where we're gonna be.
It rained the whole time, and you can actually see our experience above, but it was amazing just to walk on the ashes of a volcano. We even got to heat up marshmallows and eat them there. And lastly, something that I highly recommend is Habitenango and Altamira. Now, these two are different parks which are in the same region, but there are so many things to do here. I would recommend spending a whole day just in these two parks. This is where a lot of the photos of Guatemala are taking place. You have all these beautiful hands, rock climbing, and these Hobbit-style homes that were based off of Lord of the Rings. Some food that I'd recommend here are tamales, jacón, pepien, atol, and tortillas. And a lot of their food is based off soups and stews. Accommodations here are super affordable as well. You can typically find accommodations for under $25 a person per night. When I first went here with my fiance, we saw beautiful accommodations, lakefront, for under $20 in hostels. I later went back with some of my guy friends, and prices have increased a little bit in accommodations, but there also are a lot more accommodations in Airbnbs. Still, overall, you can find great accommodations for an affordable price. The next thing I'll talk about is transportation. So transportation the first time I went was by far my biggest expense. This is because my fiance and I took charter buses. Now, this region is very mountainous. The second time I came with my guy friends, we rented a car and drove around the beautiful country. Driving here was not easy, but it's nearly impossible at nighttime because of the fog and tinted windows. During the day, it's smooth sailing. Guatemala is a place that's near and dear to my heart, and it's somewhere that I highly recommend, especially if you want an authentic experience and don't want to pay a lot for it. The next place that I'll talk about is somewhere in the French Caribbean that I recently traveled to, and you can see this linked above. Now, this is Guadeloupe. It's a French Caribbean island that I highly recommend going to. Now, Guadeloupe is a French island, and because of that, they speak two languages, French and Creole. Unfortunately, I do not speak either, but I was able to communicate through Google Translate and pointing and doing charades. But this did not stop me from having an amazing experience on a budget. The thing that I love about Guadeloupe are pretty much all the activities that I did were free. They have the most amazing beaches, beautiful waterfalls, and caves. Some things that I would recommend is Chutes du Carbet, which is the tallest waterfall in the whole island. Next is Bassin de Amours, which is this naturally heated pool that is in a heart shape. It makes a great place for a photo op. The next place that I'd recommend is La Douche, which is a natural shower where the waves of the ocean come hit across the rocks and shower right above you. Also, going to the caves of Anse Bertrand. Now this was amazing, and this region is so different from the other side of the island. And the last thing I'd recommend is Pointe de Château, which is also their most visited tourist spot. There's this magnificent cross that overlooks the other island, and there also are some beautiful beaches around there as well. While we were here, we had some local recommendations for Boki. You have to try some of their rums. Amours, which is like a fried fritter. Colombo, which is a curry dish, and their fried fish. Now their accommodations are beautiful, especially because Guadeloupe is a Caribbean island, so they have a ton of beach resorts. But me personally, I stayed in Airbnbs and saved a lot of money by staying with local guests. Now transportation is where you can spend a lot of money, but my friends and I rented a car for a week for under $360. And this really allowed us to drive all around the island and see things at our own leisure. Now Guadeloupe can be expensive, especially if you stay in a resort the whole time. Being that it is a French island, they do use the euro, and in a lot of the tourist regions, food and drinks can be very expensive. But the best part about Guadeloupe is there's so many things to do for free. So I highly recommend you go there as well. And the last place I'll talk about is somewhere that I have not been yet, but I really want to go this year. And that is Vietnam. So there are so many things to do here, and your money goes so far. So some of the things I'll talk about that you can do are these amazing rice fields. Vietnam has these beautiful bridges, such as the Dragon Bridge and the Golden Bridge. In Hanoi, they also have a train street where there actually is a train that runs right in front of you. From what I've seen, it's a super cool and unique experience. And also Ha Long Bay. So one of the best things about Vietnam is the food. Now pardon me if I butcher any of these names, I truly apologize, but it is just not my native tongue. So some of these foods include pho, which is the national staple, and is made of flat rice noodles and a broth, and usually chicken or beef. Next is bun cha, which is typically a mix of barbecued pork, fresh noodles, and fish sauce. Banh mi, which comes from the French influence with the French baguette, and also ban kiang, wrapped in steamed fermented rice batter and dunked in a fish sauce. Next, I'll talk about accommodations. So I just did an Airbnb search, and there are so many beautiful accommodations and private Airbnbs for under $25 a night. And I was actually blown away by how affordable it is. I even saw some hostels for like $3 or $4 a night. And it's very cheap, amazing, luxurious places here. In Vietnam, many people ride motorbikes, but I also looked up how much are flights between cities, and a lot of them were under $50, which is fantastic. Overall, Vietnam is a place that I have not been to, but I highly want to get there this year. And here you guys have it. Those are my top 5 travel destinations of this year. And this is based off affordability, transportation, food, and things to do. If you guys got anything out of this video, I would truly appreciate if you gave this video a big thumbs up and leave me a comment and subscribe as well. If there are any places that you have questions about, please be sure to leave it below. And also, where did I forget about? Leave it below in my comments. I'll see you guys on the next one.